Bungie Studios single-handedly saved Microsoft's Xbox from the same fate as the Apple Pippin, with a game called Halo Combat Evolved. After a decade of molding Halo into a billion-dollar franchise, Bungie left to literally pursue their destiny, leaving new developer 343 Industries in charge of the franchise's future. To say there were changes between the old guards and the new would be a colossal understatement. Hi, I'm Kyle Stover with The Leaderboard, and today we're going to take a look at the two different eras of Halo within its 16-year history. Fasten your Mjolnir armor, Spartans. This is Then versus Now, Halo. Developers. When talking about the current state of the Halo franchise, the first comparison most fans will draw with the drop of a recon helmet is between the two major developers that have helmed the franchise. Get it? Helmed? Because helmets... that one's a bit of a stretch. Halo was originally created by Bungie, a developer funded by college buddies Alex Seropian and Jason Jones, two laid-back dudes with a passion for video games and pizza. Before Halo, Bungie had focused on the thriving industry of developing games for Macintosh computers, churning out cult classics like Pathways into Darkness, Marathon, and Myth. The company was known for its free-spirited culture. They didn't choose their projects based on what focus groups and market research deemed financially viable, but instead created games that they wanted to play, which is why it came as a complete shock for their fan base when they were acquired by Microsoft's corporate empire in the year 2000. Even when faced with a new rigid corporate structure that kept the company in perpetual state of crunch culture, which could have killed the company 3 times over, they maintained their screw the man mentality and emerged from the development of the Halo franchise as a stronger, more tightly knit studio. Or as Dominic Toretto would put it, they were family. Shortly before the release of Halo 3 in the year 2007, Bungie declared their independence from Microsoft, but at a price. They would have to leave the Halo franchise with Microsoft. While Bungie still had 2 Halo games left in the pipeline at the time, Microsoft wasted no time finding a suitable replacement. 343 Industries, named after Halo's resident pain in the ass, 343 Guilty Spark, was silently founded in July of 2007. Unlike Bungie, this developer was built from the ground up with one purpose: to continue the Halo franchise indefinitely. And not just through games, but through novels, comic books, animation, and live-action productions as well. The studio was something of an Avengers team, with Microsoft drafting talent from some of gaming's biggest developers like Pandemic Studios, BioWare, Valve, Bethesda, Treyarch, and id Software, just to name a few. Though the members of this team came from vastly different backgrounds, all of them had an undying love for the Halo universe and a desire to see the franchise succeed long after Bungie's departure. Story. The story of the original Halo trilogy is one of gaming's most memorable plots. It was an adrenaline-filled race to stop the Covenant Empire from activating the galaxy-ending Halo rings, which also prevented the alien parasite known as the Flood from consuming all sentient life in the galaxy. It was very straightforward and self-contained, meaning it lent itself well to the immersive scenarios found throughout the campaigns that Bungie had devised. With that being said, there was also a sense of mystery and ambiguity in Bungie's tale. Even by the end of Halo 3, there were still gaps in the story that were unexplained, like the origin of the Flood and several questions surrounding the mysterious Forerunners. When 343 took over, they made a point to flesh out Halo's lore further than Bungie ever did, and devoted their Reclaimer saga to answering many of the questions left unanswered by the previous trilogy. The Reclaimer saga focuses on the aftermath of humanity's triumph over the Flood and Covenant, and affirming their place as a dominant force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. The return of Master Chief is met with the return of the Forerunners themselves in the form of the villainous Didact and his army of Promethean Knights, who test the Spartan 2 to see if humanity is truly worthy of leading the galaxy. While Bungie tended to only focus on the central conflict, 343's campaigns diverged into numerous subplots that help those not familiar with the franchise's expanded universe become more familiar with the Halo universe as a whole. From the plight of independent human colonists living on planets glassed by the Covenant, to partaking in the Arbiter's Covenant civil war on the elite's previously unexplored homeworld St. Helios. 343 Industries isn't just fleshing out the Halo universe's lore, but its characters as well. When Bungie created the Master Chief, he wasn't much of a compelling, fleshed out character, but rather a faceless avatar that the player could insert themselves into while they mowed down waves of alien bastards like a government-sanctioned sociopathic badass. Cortana, while smart, funny, and a bunch of other flattering adjectives, served primarily as the player's navigation system and exposition device that was kind enough to tell you that the metallic alien corridor is not not a natural formation, since we couldn't figure that out on our own, 343 fleshed out both of these characters beyond any fan's expectations in Halo 4, by giving them both arcs that made what was previously a bobbing helmet with a deep and sexy voice into something closer to a real person, by providing him with a conflict that puts somebody he cares about in mortal danger, while also going through a personal arc that has him coming to terms with his own humanity, something that he had been trained to neglect his entire life. Gameplay. In the original trilogy, Bungie put a heavy emphasis on player balance, having every player in the match start with the same 2 weapons regardless of game type. If it was standard Slayer, every Spartan would spawn with an assault rifle and magnum, Slayer BRS would start everyone off with the much beloved BR-55, and swords would grant everybody, well, an energy sword, nothing else. To top this off, every player was capable of performing these same abilities. You could jump, crouch, melee, shoot, and use grenades just like everybody else. With player choice and customization on the high rise in 2012, 343 decided to take a few pages out of Call of Duty's book by introducing custom loadouts to Halo 4. Players could now choose which 2 weapons they would start out with, anything ranging from a plasma pistol to a DMR, meaning that for the first time, a player could have the dreaded noob combo in their back pocket at all times. Halo Reach's divisive armor abilities made a return to the Halo sandbox. Armor abilities add an extra trick up each player's sleeve, giving them each a distinct advantage in a particular situation that other players won't have, such as active camouflage, regeneration fields, and Promethean vision, which would allow a player to see others through walls. The chaotic factor is dialed up another notch with the inclusion of a version of Call of Duty's perks called tactical packages and support upgrades, some of which include the ability to retrieve grenades from enemy corpses, enhanced reloading speeds, shielding, and allowing players to survive vehicular explosions. The only factor that differed in the multiplayer Spartans of the original trilogy was the player's skill level and knowledge, something Bungie's trilogy rewarded handsomely, particularly with tactics like map control. Having good map control meant the player knew the map like the back of their hand, knowing the arena's player spawn points, choke points, and most importantly of all, the locations and spawn times of the level's power weapons. This formula was so cherished it made Halo 2 and 3 favorites among competitive games and were prominently featured on professional gaming circuits like Major League Gaming for many years. Halo 4 had map control go the way of the dinosaurs with requisition drops that allowed players to call in random power weapons to their position if they scored enough kills, much like another popular shooter on the market. Power weapons still appear on the map by default, but their appearances are much more random in nature. Your heads-up display also alerts you and the other players of their position thanks to small icons scattered throughout the arena, pushing aside the need to familiarize yourself with the map in question. Many of Halo 4's creative decisions were welcomed by new fans and more casual players, but left the hardcore veterans of the original trilogy feeling alienated. 343 Industries attempted to remedy the situation with Halo 5 Guardians, opting to create an experience that was something between Halo 2 and a modern first-person shooter. Like the original trilogy, custom loadouts were absent and every Spartan begins the match with the same weapons. Armor abilities were scrapped in favor of Spartan abilities, capabilities that every player has access to. These include the unlimited sprint and thruster pack abilities that sped up Halo's gameplay faster than any previous title in the franchise, while the smart scope feature in the original trilogy was limited to ranged weapons and a select few power weapons. Halo 5's smart scope is much more advanced, allowing the player to aim down the sights of any weapon like in most modern shooters. Clamber allows the player to vault over objects and grab onto high ledges, effectively rendering Halo's signature crouch jump somewhat obsolete. There are also the diverse offensive abilities, Ground Pound and Spartan Charge, which are capable of an instant kill, but only if your timing and positioning are just right, adding a bit more variety than the beatdown ability that has been present since Combat Evolved. Halo 5's competitive modes remove the controversial requisition drops found in Halo 4 in favor of consistent weapon spawns in key locations of the map, akin to the original trilogy, but not quite the same since the gun's HUD informs you of a power weapon's location and spawn timer, again somewhat neglecting a need for a bit more experience to one-up other players. Multiplayer modes. In the original Bungie trilogy, there is never any explanation as to why a bunch of red and blue Spartans are killing the hell out of each other when there's a war being fought against an alien collective seeking to wipe out all of humanity. Is multiplayer supposed to be a training simulation of some kind? Is it some kind of twisted and cruel afterlife where Spartans have no choice but to slay their brethren until the end of time? Bungie never really cared to explain, so the multiplayer suite was widely considered to be a mindless, non-canonical fun. With their newfold emphasis on expanding Halo's lore, 343 Industries finally had an answer to the age-old question. Halo multiplayer is a canonical wargame simulator used to train the abilities of Spartan 4's stationed aboard the massive UNSC warship, the Infinity. This means that every Xbox Live member that has ever logged into Halo 4 and 5 is officially a character within the Halo canon. Spartan Icy Wiener 69 reporting for duty, sir. sir. With this new context added, 343 was able to add some old game types into something that fits into the Halo lore. A prime example being their revamp of the fan-favorite game type that debuted in Halo 2, Infection. In the Bungie trilogy, Infection was nothing more than different colored Spartans placed on two different teams, the zombie side possessing energy swords, while the survivors fought for dear life with nothing but a shotgun and maybe a sidearm. It took a bit of imagination to make the whole zombie apocalypse thing come alive in those days. In Halo 4, you needn't imagine any longer. The UNSC Infinity Wargames simulation includes a game type called Flood, a program designed to prepare the Spartan force in the event the all-consuming flood returns to threaten the galaxy once more. While the Spartans generally play the same roles they did in Halo 2 and 3 zombie modes, the zombified Spartans take on the appearance of what seems to be a flood combat form, adding an extra layer of immersion and fun to an already classic game type. 343 also has a habit of taking classic game types and meshing them together into something new. Warzone is the beautiful love child of big team battle, and Halo 3 ODST's Firefight, pumped with steroids and green veggies to create the most massive battlefield ever seen in a Halo game. Two teams of 12 square off in a war game simulation centered around more than just killing the enemy team, with multiple ways to win. Either capture all bases on the map and expose the core, or take down real-world Covenant and Promethean threats, like the Warden Eternal, Covenant Remnant head honcho Jewel Mdama, or a grunt in a mech suit. Unlike the big team battles of old, your options in weapons and vehicles aren't limited to what you can find on the battlefield. Via Halo 5's controversial microtransaction-based rec system, you're able to call in any vehicle or weapon that you may have in your inventory for endless possibilities. Reception. Critically speaking, every Halo game in the Bungie trilogy and Reclaimer saga have been received quite positively. On Metacritic, the series peaked with Halo Combat Evolved, which scored an unfrickin' believable score of 97, closely followed by a 95 for Halo 2, while Halo 3 scored 1 point less than its predecessor with a 94. The entries that have been released for the Reclaimer saga thus far have dipped a bit lower, but not by much, with Halo 4 coming in with a score of 87, while Halo 5 Guardians taking a small dip with a score of 84. This leaves Bungie's Halo 3 ODST with the lowest Metacritic score in the main Halo saga, sporting an 83. Sales-wise, the best seller out of the series is Halo 3, which boasts a whopping 12.4 million units sold since its debut in 2007. The second highest seller out of the numbered Halo games is Halo 4 with 9.75 million copies sold, but 343's success was somewhat short-lived, as Halo 5 Guardians comes in dead last, barely selling 5 million units since its release in 2015, selling less units than Halo Combat Evolved, which sold 5.5 million copies, making it the worst-selling Halo FPS so far. And there are quite a few reasons as why this could be. While its online multiplayer was praised by fans and critics alike, Halo 5 itself was considered to be a controversial game at launch, mainly due to the game's campaign, which featured lackluster level design, poor writing, and severely incompetent AI, both friendly and not. Halo 5 was also panned by fans for being the first entry in the series to lack split-screen multiplayer. Perhaps most controversial of all was the campaign's severe lack of Master Chief, with the legendary Spartan 2 only appearing as a playable character in 3 out of 15 missions, effectively being replaced by the poorly received Spartan 4 Jameson Locke. Fortunately, 343 Industries has listened to all feedback regarding Halo 5 and has already begun promising things like the return of split-screen in all future Halo titles, as well as the return of Master Chief as the sole playable protagonist of the still unreleased Halo 6. Until its inevitable release, here's hoping that 343 can restore the Halo series to its former glory. There you have it, folks. Once again, I'm Kyle Stover, and thanks for watching Then vs. Now Halo. Which Halo game is your favorite? Did we miss anything? Comment below and let us know. Don't forget to check the bell icon to become a part of the notification squad, and if you like getting more from your games, subscribe to The Leaderboard, your home for video game facts.